Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, welcome everyone to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Thursday, Christy Fulnecki will be joining us, and it will be Author of the Week Day. It is Author of the Week Day, I should say. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. It did not take long for a Virginia judge to issue a ruling blocking Virginia from moving forward with certifying the results of that special election regarding the redistricting referendum. And ruling from the Tazewell Circuit Court Judge Jack Hurtley yesterday, explaining that, quote, the process underlying the referendum broke several state laws. that certifying the vote would harm lawmakers in the state, according to the local WTVR. Well, of course it did. I mean, this should come as absolutely no surprise that numerous laws were broken, at least according to this judge, when it came to the attempt by Democrats to essentially disenfranchise every Republican voter in the entire state by creating this map that is nowhere in line with reality. Kamala Harris, last presidential election, got under 52% of the vote. Yet, in terms of representation, the current map, this is congressional map in Virginia of 11 different seats. It was 6 Democrat, 5 Republican. So that's as in line. If you're going to look at the presidential results and the people across Virginia, and you're going to say, all right, well, it's about 50-50. It's 51 and a half to 47 percentage points Republican Democrat based off of the last presidential election. And you have 11 congressional seats, and you want to get it as close as possible to having a reflection of the voting patterns, or at least based off, it wouldn't be a pattern, but the last presidential election. Then you'd say, well, we can't do 50-50 because we got 11, and Kamala Harris got 51 point something percent of the vote. So we'll have a layout in which Democrats have 6 seats and Republicans have 5. And that's the way it is. That's how it was. And they just decided we don't care for that any longer. And so they changed it into where Democrats got 90+%. 10 seats. Redistricting it would go to Democrats, and only 1 would go to Republicans. Now, and you know how this goes. Many of you do. Gerrymandering has been around since the 1800s. This is a tactic that has long been used, primarily by Democrats, in order to disenfranchise voters that do not believe in the one-party system. And one of the things about Donald Trump is he does not believe in handicapping oneself when you are in a battle. We saw this when it came to mail-in voting. And Donald Trump was, when he ran against Joe Biden, opposed to mail-in voting and discouraged Republican voters from mailing in ballots out of fear that the ballots could disappear, or, how the mail is, things get lost in the mail. And noted that the single most effective way to make sure that your vote gets in and gets counted is to show up on Election Day. And what Trump recognized, however, is that you lose a lot of ground, that you really then only have one get out the vote day as opposed to a couple of weeks worth of get out the vote days. And the refusal to utilize the less secure way of voting gave the Democrats an advantage. And so Trump did what Trump does. When he recognizes a miscalculation, a mistake, he fixes it. And that is why the second time around, he really encouraged mail-in voting. In fact, he was criticized. He was called hypocritical. Oh, sure, Donald Trump now, he's for mail-in voting. He was against it before because it's not a secure way. Well, that is true. But he also recognized that it gave the Democrats an advantage that far outweighed any potential concerns of ballots getting lost in the mail. When it comes to the issue of redistricting, he recognized that Republicans put themselves at a disadvantage because Democrats had been politicizing that process and utilizing gerrymandering in order to pad their numbers for a very long time. And Republicans, as Republicans oftentimes do, say, well, just because they do it doesn't mean it's right, and we'd rather lose fighting the good fight than win getting down in the mud. And that's just not Donald Trump's way. He does not operate that way. And so he began encouraging a number of these states that could utilize the redistricting based off of the latest census in a manner that greater aligns with the Republican values of the voters in those states. And Texas, of course, was a big one in which the redistricting resulted in a significant number of pickups for Republicans, and the left did what the left traditionally does, and that is get outraged when Republicans under the leadership of Donald Trump start fighting fire with fire. You know, when you understand that so much of the outrage you see from Democrats is simply a recognition that Trump now has Republicans fighting without one hand tied behind their back, you really start to see things in a different way. Even the rhetoric, the outrage we've heard from Democrats about Trump being so divisive. Oh, and he's so mean. Oh, and he name calls. This is something that Democrats have done my entire adult life. As a voter who does not support the values and the policy positions of Democrats, I've been called a racist, I've been called a Nazi, I've been called transphobe, homophobe, I've been called anti-science, I've been called, all the things that you have been called. Unless you're, of course, a Democrat. Their problem wasn't that Donald Trump name-called. It was the fact that he was just returning fire with fire, that suddenly they saw someone as a leader in the Republican Party that no longer was going to tie one hand behind their back in the fight. And it's whether it's name-calling, it's fighting a little bit dirty, it is the redistricting issue. And so their faux outrage and their justification, be it in California or Virginia, in turning those states into a one-party rule system, which California was already there. They just wanted to really solidify it. And of course, there's other advantage to that as well when it comes to Congress and the electoral vote. But aside from all of that, this wasn't a response to something created by Donald Trump. It was in response to Donald Trump encouraging the Republican Party to untie that other hand and start playing by the same rules that the Democrats play by. Perhaps not as starkly. Texas did not, when they redistrict it in a way in which Democrats only got one seat in the entire state of Texas like Virginia did. But nonetheless, here we are, and as of yesterday, a judge throwing this out saying there were numerous laws that were broken when it came to just the vote itself on this thing. Of course, the Democrat Attorney General has said, this is just an activist judge and we're going to fight this. But most serious legal scholars have recognized from the onset, regardless of how the vote turned out, this is something that would not stand up in court. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then mostly sunny with a high near 74. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78.
25th anniversary tribute to 9/11 coming up Friday, September 11th. I say coming up. It's obviously a bit away, but nonetheless, already promoting an event at the Black Oak Amphitheater featuring Big and Rich, Craig Morgan, Andy Ross, and Jacob Smalley. And you have a chance to win tickets at ksgf.com if you want to head on over there and do that. How long does that contest go?
I believe it goes until Sunday night, like 11:59.
Okay, so
You have until Sunday.
okay, got until Sunday to do that. Good luck, everyone. We talked yesterday about the news Mike Landis had, and it was regarding Hammond's Field and hinting that there was going to be a name change. And we noted that some of the larger, more iconic and well-known infrastructures in Springfield that had the Hammond name or has a Hammond's name on it, just as as he died, and I think it was 2013. These things are just kind of going away. The Great Southern Arena, formerly known as the Q, or informally known as the Q, Hammond's Field, that going away, and I had some communication with someone pretty closely involved with this stuff, and they're noting that which we talked a little bit about how this is probably the behind the scenes stuff going on, and that so many of these things were to continue to be funded by a foundation that he had set up. But the people, now I'm sure the people in charge of the foundation probably have a different opinion on this, but the perspective that many have is that the foundation just really did a very, very bad job of handling things and screwed the pooch on it. And so the money dried up, and that's why they are taking those names off of those particular facilities because of the obligation to continue through the foundation to have that funding coming, and then it no longer being there. And then some of the infrastructure that has his name on it that wasn't reliant on that continued funding stream, will continue to have his name on it. Excuse me. And I don't know which of those things would be. It seems like the problem in terms of his legacy. It's the really high profile things that are resulting, or we're seeing the results of that foundation not having the capacity to continue funding of these things or for some time, and so it's that high profile stuff. I think it would be nice, and maybe the city has something in mind, that if it does get to the point where the more iconic and high profile infrastructure that has his name and will no longer have his name, there be some sort of high profile something with Hammonds on it. And I just, because he was so instrumental in so much of the infrastructure in Springfield, it's just a shame that someone who had such a profound impact on Springfield, in that individual's passing, if the only things left with any sort of recognition in existence that are of high-profile nature, recognizable, are things that are there because, well, he paid for it. It just seems like maybe a little extra, like, okay, well, yes, he didn't pay for this, or it didn't continue to get paid, but he did do a lot for the community. So maybe we ought to have some sort of high-profile recognition, and because it is part of Springfield history, and you just hate to see. I don't know. It's just somewhat discouraging, I think, to a lot of people. One, it's what you're used to, and you grow up with it, and you see it. And to have that stuff just fade away when they oftentimes wouldn't exist, these different infrastructures, if it were not for that individual. And, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people probably think, who cares? What difference does it make? And maybe it doesn't in the long run. But I just think anyone living in Springfield should at least know the name Hammonds. Even if they aren't really necessarily sure why they know the name. It just seems like the sort of thing that is due. Anyway, it's just my thought. All right, now I want to talk about this continued effort by the city of Springfield to implement not only their own version of campaign finance laws, but the ability to actually throw in jail without a trial, like through our normal judicial system, apparently, a person that is deemed to violate these new campaign finance rules. And there's a new news leader story actually from a couple of days ago regarding this, because the mayor made some last-minute changes to the new ordinance capping your right to donate certain amounts to the candidate of your choosing. Now, I think, understand this. This does not put a cap on how much the people are allowed to raise. This is not a cap on them. It's the way that they make it seem. Oh, well, we can't be trusted with all this money, see. We may be unduly influenced by high donors, and so we're going to pass laws so that we protect you from us being corrupt. But there's no limit to how much they can raise. The limit is on how much we, as citizens of Springfield, or even outside the city of Springfield, are allowed to donate to a candidate of our choosing. So the news later writes, a Springfield City Council committee spent months researching and creating systems for how the city could cap the amount donors can contribute to local city candidate campaigns. The proposal to limit campaign contributions is nearing a full council vote, but on Monday night, this is this past Monday, The ordinance approved in committee was substituted with another, which included several substantial changes by Mayor Jeff Schrag. The overall limits are remaining intact. The ordinance would prohibit individuals or political action committees from contributing more than $2,825 per election cycle to individuals running for Springfield mayor or council seats. Currently, no law or ordinance limits contributions to council candidate campaigns in Springfield, making the Queen City the largest city in Missouri without such caps. So, of course, we have to rush to try to be like the liberal cities of Kansas City, St. Louis, and Columbia. The addition of limits has been welcomed by several local groups and drew in 16 speakers at the meeting on Monday, April 20th. However, the details of the bill regarding how these limits would be enforced and by whom were changed by Mayor Schrag. The substitute bill brought forth by the mayor was approved in a 7-2 vote, with council members Monica Horton and Brandon Jensen in opposition. The bill had not been shared with council members before Monday. Schrag said his goal with the changes was to align with state law and get rid of duplications from what the Missouri Ethics Commission already oversees. This is my favorite line from the story. When the mayor was asked why he bypassed the committee process with the changes, he said he had no good excuse for doing that. It kind of almost feels like a Tim Waltz sort of, in certain ways, some of the things that Mayor Schrag has said, kind of like, I don't know, I just did it. You know, I'm just a knucklehead. Committee process, blah. I'm just a goofy guy. I don't know why I did it. I mean, and then that is just like, okay. I have no good excuse. No reason, just because I wanted to. Okay. We're going to take a break, and there's a number of elements to this, none of which are good. Ultimately, the fantasy world that some people want to live in which this somehow makes a bit of difference in terms of how elected officials represent people. Can we find anywhere, be it a city or a state, in which the representation wasn't really truly in line with the average citizen until they put campaign laws into effect, and all of a sudden, lickety-split, everyone's happy. Look at that. Politicians are honest. They're responsive. They no longer give any sort of extra attention to people in the community that are movers and shakers and build things and bring in businesses. Nope, all that is... Can you find me one place that this has ever had what we're told is the intended impact and result? No, you can't, because it doesn't exist, because this doesn't do that. Tell you what it does do. It makes it much more difficult for average citizens who want to be part of the process to take on the establishment. This is nothing ultimately in terms of real meaningful impact other than making it a more secure position for the establishment. It makes it much, much, much more difficult for a person to beat an incumbent. This is all about protecting incumbency. This is not about you. This is not about honesty. It's not about fairness. This is about self-preservation. All right, we got traffic. Do want to remind you we have Heroes Breakfast tomorrow. Breakfast for you veterans. We will be broadcasting live from Scramblers, 6A to 9A. And if you're a veteran, you come out, you're going to get free breakfast. Yes. That is thanks to Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical. The Warrior's Journey, and they have that gala coming up, which is just one of the most incredible galas, incredible events, incredible efforts and causes that does have worldwide reach, and it's right here in Springfield, both the Warrior's Journey and, of course, the gala. So we'll get you updated on some of the details on that as well. And, of course, Scramblers, all of those partners making it possible for us to do a free breakfast for veterans every so often, and that every so often is tomorrow, 6A to 9A, as we broadcast live at Scramblers.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by JNS Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then mostly sunny skies with a high near 74. And taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78.
The city of Springfield has for some time been rolling over, restricting the amount of money that people can donate to individuals running for city council in Springfield and or for the mayor's position as well. Now, I'm very specific in the wording of this because it does make a difference. This is not about, quote, taking money out of politics. If it were, they would say candidates can only raise this much money. If you run for city council, you can only raise $10,000. Because if you notice, oftentimes they, as a reference point when they sell this idea, they talk about how much money's been raised. It raised this much money. Oh, this much money was raised. This does not put a stop to how much money can be raised. This does nothing to do that. It limits how much you can give. And we'll get to the implications of that coming up, because deliberate or otherwise, this makes it much more difficult for average citizens who are not part of the elite political process to run and to succeed. And I know that some of these people know this because they're not all stupid. Some may be, but I find it very difficult to believe that every single one of them is. Now, the news leader, this came up, a recent city council meeting, and there was a proposal, and then the mayor does some last-minute changes. He apparently bypasses the committee process. When the news leader asked him why, he said he, quote, has no good excuse for doing that. Okay, so. Now, some of the changes, with the original ordinance, it would have strictly capped local campaign contributions at $2,825. Now, you may ask, how is it that they came up with that number? How is it that they determined because the presentation here is that, well, this is going to prevent us from being unduly influenced by people who give lots of money. You can't trust us. We can't trust us not to ignore the will of the average citizen and instead defer to somebody who writes a check that's larger than you. And so while you can't trust us in that capacity, you can trust us to create new rules that tell you how much you can donate in order to make sure that you can trust us. I know, now, to normal people, that sounds very convoluted, but you have to understand this is how the elites think. So what formula did they utilize in order to determine that amount of $2,825 is the amount that prevents them from ignoring average citizens while paying attention to a greater degree and deferring to those who, pay more? We don't know the answer to that. They've never explained how they came up with this number. Apparently, $3,000, if somebody were to donate $3,000, that would be a breaking point for them, and that would cause them to automatically defer to and pay more attention to the person who wrote a check for $3,000 as opposed to somebody that wrote a check for $2,000, because $2,825, that's the maximum amount that they should be allowed to get from an individual to not be unduly influenced. Again, and maybe whatever proof they have or evidence they have that this will do that is just way too complicated for us simpletons, and so they don't even bother sharing the information with us because we won't understand. There were concerns about in-kind contributions. An in-kind contribution is, let's say, for example, I have an event center, and that event center I charge $1,000 an hour to rent out. And somebody who's running for office wants to utilize the event center for a campaign event, and instead of charging them $1,000, I say I want to gift, I'll just let you use it. And an in-kind contribution is considered a contribution, the value that I otherwise would have charged. So that would be considered a $1,000 in-kind contribution. And because of cost of billboards and other forms of advertisement, there was some concern that the in-kind contribution that they normally benefit from might exceed that $2,825. And so there was some talks about having the cap be a little bit higher, but According to the news leader, both the original and substitute bill still keeps the in-kind contributions at the same limit. City Attorney Jordan Paul also clarified that the limit would apply to monetary and in-kind contributions combined under the current language. Schrag's proposal removed the failure to report contributions from being a local violation, noting that already falls under state regulation and is enforced by the Missouri Ethics Commission. So that was, one of the changes that he made by passing committee. Enforcement shifted from new commission to an existing one. A large portion of the discussion in the Plans and Policies Committee surrounding the enforcement mechanism and ways that the city could effectively investigate potential violations of the proposed rules without being too onerous on the staff. The committee, I love this. The committee, with the guidance of the city attorney, decided on a system similar to those present in Kansas City and St. Louis. Because if any cities in the state of Missouri or the country, one would look to for the perfect, most ethical run city government ever, it would be St. Louis and Kansas City, right? Did I miss something here? Have we long accepted that Kansas City and St. Louis are the example of pure and authentically driven politics with no corruption, with no undue influence by people with big money? Did I miss that day? I love whenever you have this is it's like a Napoleonic syndrome where Springfield feels insecure, the people who run it, and they want to desperately feel more important and bigger than they are. So they mimic St. Louis and Kansas City, and they look to St. Louis and Kansas City, but in all the wrong areas. When it comes to ethical government, these are the guiding lights that the city decided to use when it comes to this particular component of campaign donations. They thought to themselves, where they've got all this cleaned up, right? Where there's no corruption, and the citizens feel as if their local council members and their mayor is completely responsive, not to big business, not to political action committees, but the average citizen. Kansas City and St. Louis, those cities just really have their act together. I mean, the irony. The original ordinance would have created a new 9-person citizen commission appointed by council to oversee election campaign finances and be charged with investigating violations. Schrag's bill instead places this responsibility on the already established Citizens Tax Oversight Committee. The committee reviews and monitors the city's tax revenue. So now, individuals that have been assessed and appointed as educated and I suppose to some degree has an expertise in tax revenue is now going to be tasked with being experts when it comes to campaign finance issues. Okay. I want to get a traffic update and then cover the part of this that to me gets not near the attention it deserves. And it is insane to me that this idea is even being entertained. And that is, unless this too has changed, but as it's been reported thus far, if this group of hand-picked individuals that is given authority over these new rules that are being set up, determine that you have violated any of their new rules, they can fine you, I think it's up to 10 grand, but also throw you in jail for a certain amount of time. Now, we're not talking about a committee that writes up some sort of recommendation to the DA's office, and then you if you can't afford an attorney, then you'll be appointed one, and you go through our judicial system. This is judge, jury, and executioner all in one. I may be I'm not a legal expert, but I just didn't know that this sort of thing could happen in America. Like, are you going to be afforded an attorney at least if you can't afford one? Or is the city of Springfield really setting up this Putin-style justice system in which you don't have the right to remain silent, you don't have the right to an attorney? These are some political appointees that can throw you in jail without your standard trial. And the fact that of all of the different aspects of this, just sort of like, oh yeah, by the way, they can throw you in jail if they want to. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, is astounding to me. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. I always mention the buying side of things, but if you're looking to sell, Springfield Livestock, they are the place to go. Easy access off I-44. They have field reps from Crane to Bolivar to Seymour, everywhere in between, and they can help answer questions or even help you haul, and they accept cattle 7 days a week. But if you are on the buying side of things, they have a real estate sale of over 300 plus acres this evening that will start about 6 p.m. They have a horse sale on Friday at 5 p.m. and on Sunday they will host the Show Me Red Angus sale at 2 p.m. To check out other upcoming sales or if you want more information on their field reps, visit the website springfieldlivestock.com, and of course you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The city of Springfield continues to craft these rules regarding how much a person would be allowed to donate to somebody running for city council or the position of mayor. It doesn't cap how much they can raise. It caps how much you can give. So this doesn't take money out of politics. It simply limits how much influence you are allowed to have when it comes to financial participation in the process. The part about all of this that I find to be the most astounding and demonstrates either Springfield has just become so authoritarian. They don't even recognize law, or and I fully acknowledge, I may be completely ignorant of the law, is the fact that this committee, which, according to the alterations made with this bill, would be the committee that currently serves as tax and revenue. All right, and so if somebody, you decide you want to run and you violate one of the rules that they set up, then this committee of political appointees get to be the judge, jury, and executioner. And according to the news leader, in order to ensure timely attention to complaints, the ordinance establishes that the commission must issue a decision within 90 days of the filing of the complaint. Now, I do believe Schrag changed that to 180 days, and there's a caveat to that as well I'll address in a moment. But the news leader's previous reporting noted, if a violation is found, the commission would issue a written opinion, an explanation of the violation, and any appropriate action to be considered. The ordinance lays out a penalty of a fine not to exceed $1,000 or not more than 6 months in jail. Now, this is not a jury trial. This is not a judge. This is the city declaring that they want the ability to take a committee of political appointees whose job it is to monitor tax revenue and be able to put you in jail. I mean, it's like the Soviet Union. You got the commission over here, and it says nothing about the right to an attorney. Because generally in our system, that's something that we have. If you are accused of a crime in which you can be punished by a financial penalty or put in jail, you are allowed an attorney. If you can't afford one will be appointed toward. Does that come into play here? The right to a jury of your peers, apparently that's non-existent. They're just sitting up their sort of quasi-judicial system in which the people who accuse you then get to decide whether you're guilty or not and can put you in jail. Either I'm completely missing something on this, and this is perfectly normal. Or this city is so out of control and authoritarian that we are sliding into this Soviet-style judicial system in which political people get to appoint individuals that can put their political opposition in jail. Now, here's a real fancy part of this, and I think of this as the Jan Fisk rule. The ordinance brought by Schrag includes a provision that if the committee has not made a decision within 180 days of a complaint being filed, it's automatically dismissed. Now, I call this the Jan Fisk rule because Jan Fisk, some of you may recall, some time ago when she was on the council, there was part of the city charter said no one on council can vote on anything in which they either directly or indirectly benefit financially, and if they do, they shall be removed. Not could be or should be, but shall be removed. Well, Jan Fisk was voting on all sorts of things in terms of contracts with Fisk limousines, and so the company that is part of her world, her family, her and her husband, however it's set up. Well, they were getting money from the taxpayers, and she was voting on this stuff. So she shall be removed, but she wasn't. And you know what they did? Well, we're going to open an investigation. And the investigation lasted until she decided not to run for re-election. And then exactly as predicted under Mayor McCheese, they said, well, there's no point moving forward at this point now because she's no longer here. So this is sort of a baked-in Jan Fisk rule where you just let the clock run out. So the committee, not only political appointees, will have the ability to throw into jail political opposition to people currently on the council. But if it's someone that, I don't know, maybe donated to their campaign or these people wouldn't actually be council people, so they wouldn't have a campaign. But these people are all of the same world. If it was an ally, someone that they liked, they just don't even have to investigate it. Just let it go 180 days and then it disappears. It's gone. Well, isn't that a convenient system? This entire thing screams either complete and total corruption or a level of, I hate to use such simple words, but stupidity that boggles the mind. We got Christy Fonecki joining us in the upcoming hour. Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone in Hour 3. News in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello, welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Ozarks Elder Law, all of your, it's called, for good reason, Ozarks Elder Law, because oftentimes you are elderly when you run into so many of these problems with your assets and things you want to leave to family members behind that you don't want to cause any sort of headache or hassle, or when it comes to transitioning you into assisted living or a nursing home. But there are a lot of things that can affect non-elderly people as well, including you're 18 years old or your 18-year-old gets into some sort of accident and is unable to make decisions for him or herself. They're an adult, and if they have not assigned someone to do that for them, then the government is that person. And Lori Rook has talked to us about this before, and she walks the walk. When her son turned 18 years old, they got this work done. They took care of it and had it all put into legal documentation should something happen to him, who will take care of him. So Ozarks Elder Law do not mistakenly believe that if you are not elderly, you don't need to worry about it, because it does affect and impact everyone. And it's not the sort of thing you can download and do yourself online, despite some of these sales gimmicks that make you think otherwise. Free consultation. 10 area locations, ozarkselderlaw.com. I want to make one final point about the last hour's discussion, or part of the last hour's discussion, on the city attempting to apparently set up, or continue to attempt to set up, what appears to be this sort of new form of judicial system in which they have a committee of people whose job it is to oversee taxes and revenue, will now be able to, if this goes through, be the enforcer of the campaign finance laws that arbitrarily they are looking to set into place. And the committee, when a complaint is submitted, can either ignore it and then it just goes away, or if they determine that you are guilty, can fine you up to $1,000 and put you in jail for 6 months. And no standard judicial system, no, at least according to any of the reports that have been out there in the media, right to an attorney, none of that stuff. More of a Soviet-style committee that you just get hauled in front of, and that's just it. And that's insane to me, but apparently this is where we are, unless I'm missing something big, and I'm fully open to the fact that I may. But all that being said, this idea of capping the amount of money that you can donate, and they picked a number around 2,800, didn't explain why that's the magic number, but they're in charge, so they don't have to. There are a number of speakers that showed up in order to support this, and one of them is the president of the local NAACP chapter, saying, quote, "We believe campaigns should focus on issues, not fundraising. When reasonable limits are put in place, candidates can spend more time engaging with voters and addressing real community needs instead of chasing large checks." Okay, I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt to this person and assume she just does not understand reality. If you have to, let's say you have a giant swimming pool, and you have to fill that swimming pool with Jelly Bellies. And you are either able to fill it with Jelly Bellies with a giant fire hose, or you are told you have to fill the swimming pool with Jelly Bellies with a spoon. Which of those two is going to help facilitate you doing it faster? It's going to be the fire hose, correct? You will not have to spend as much time transferring Jelly Bellies into the swimming pool as you would with a spoon, because with a spoon you can only do smaller amounts. It is the same way with fundraising. The limits that you put on average donations, the smaller the limit is, the more fundraising you have to do in order to get that dollar amount. This is extremely advantageous to incumbents because they have a built-in base already, and they have their support system, and they have their fundraising list already in place. But if you are somebody that is new and you want to get out there and talk to citizens about the issues, instead of somebody writing you like, you know what, I believe in you, here's a $50,000 check, and then you're like, I don't have to worry about fundraising. Sure, I'll still do it to some degree, but this is going to give me the ability to go out and to actually campaign because I got this one $50,000 check. But if you instead tell people, sorry, you can't do that, you can only get $2,800 per person, then that forces you to spend more time fundraising. So this idiotic idea, as presented by the president of the local NAACP chapter, that limiting the amount that a person can give a candidate allows a candidate to go out and not have to fundraise as much, is the opposite of reality. I just wanted to mention that. And we'll talk about this more as it comes into greater focus and gets closer to the city potentially putting it into place. And I believe that it would be overturned because I just don't think you can have this new judicial system they apparently want to set up in place. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then mostly sunny with a high near 74. And taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78. What is...
Shout out to totally awesome Elliot, one of my nieces, who has tomorrow she's going in for pinky surgery. She broke her pinky.
Oh.
I think street fighting, if I understood correctly.
What?
Street fighting, yeah.
You know, good for
Street
her.
fighting. Yeah.
Wow.
No, not street fighting. I'm just
Okay.
kidding. I don't think so. I didn't
It
ask
was
how it
during a
happened.
dance off.
I did. Yeah. I didn't ask how it happened. I just knew that it did.
Oh.
And yeah,
We'll
so
pray for
she's
Elliot.
yes, it's very very minor surgery, but yeah. So shout out to her,
Oh,
and
that's
and
good.
and really live up all the attention that comes with surgery.
Yeah, right.
That is my recommendation. I had surgery when I was about, I think, my 5th birthday or 6th birthday, somewhere around there. And yeah, you get eat it up.
That's good advice.
Ask for whatever you want. Just really sad face when you do it. Can I have a pony?
Good advice, Uncle Nick.
I am full of great advice.
Yeah, pretty much. I've got to comment on the city council thing. This is
I keep
so
thinking I'm missing
crazy.
something, but and the person who's writing the story for the news leader is the one person that consistently I find does absolute A+ job in writing news stories. Marta Mietzi, I don't know how you say her last name, but she does everything that it's like, oh my gosh, there are people out there that still do really great job in terms of writing stories.
I'm sorry.
And
This makes me so mad. I mean, okay, for one thing, it's capped to 2,500.
2,825.
That's totally not fair.
That's the magic number.
Okay, and I haven't checked in a while, so I could be wrong, but I think I raised the most of any city council person and anyone that ran for mayor here. So I have some experience in this. But when I ran for mayor, I was competing against the chamber and the Good Government Committee.
I know.
So you're putting people that are not, especially conservatives, in a bad position because we're
Average citizens.
we're having to compete against the chamber.
That's always the result.
Yeah.
That's always the result of this
So
stuff.
are they going to cap what the Good Government Committee can raise? Does that apply to them? Because they'll say, oh, no, those are individual donations, but they are soliciting those.
But here's the thing, even more important than that. If they really, truly, if this really was about making sure that they're not unduly influenced by groups or people or organizations that have more power than the average citizen, then they would ban endorsements from groups and unions.
Yeah, exactly.
Because those endorsements have so much more power than a dollar.
Right.
When you are running and you get, and this isn't anything against like the firefighters union or police union, it doesn't have anything to do with them, but the amount of impact those endorsements have far exceed, $2,800. They exceed $10,000.
Yeah.
But they will never do that because they benefit from those endorsements, because generally incumbents get the endorsements from these different organizations. This is just to create a protective barrier to make it that much more difficult. This whole thing,
It's
the
so
timing of
scary.
this,
Yeah.
the timing of this. Well, just yesterday or the day before, we talked about how the city, in what apparently in response to not once but twice the citizens denying their request for this convention center thing.
Yeah.
They're going to go out there, and Mayor Schrag's going to lead these little meetings in different neighborhoods in order to be more responsive to people. But then at the same time, they're creating these limits that make it so much more difficult for the average citizen to ever unseat an incumbent.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Well, the scary thing to me is that because if they don't like you and they don't like your politics, they'll put you in jail. To me, that was the first thing I thought of when you started talking about. I thought, thank goodness I am not there, because they went after me, and we had the whole hearing with the, Supreme Court justice.
And then on the flip side, this is all so clearly corrupt. The more I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt, but if they don't do anything for 180 days after a complaint's filed, then it just goes away. So what that means is, if, let's just say, hypothetically, of course, that one of theirs gets accused of violating the rules, and there's no way they can get around looking at the evidence and say, oh, no, they didn't do it because it's clear you just don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
And then it gets tossed out.
Just like you said with Jan.
I mean, it's just, yes. It's
everything you try to accuse me of.
I don't know if Schrag realizes. Sorry to talk over you. I feel like some people know they know what they're doing. I just don't know if Schrag does.
Yeah, and this is a perfect example because everything they accused me of, Jan was doing. And so everything they were accusing me of, she was doing, and they didn't do anything to her. So this shows you what they're going to do to their political opponents. Then the next point is it's completely unconstitutional. I mean, I could go into this whole thing, but city councils cannot put people in jail.
It wouldn't even be the city council. It's a handful of appointed people that are appointed, I guess, by the council. I don't even know how those appointments occur. It's the committee that overviews taxes and revenue.
Yeah.
It's like giving them that power. It's crazy.
It's a jurisdiction of the courts. When you violate municipal ordinance, let's say, you get a ticket, you're loitering, whatever, you have to deal with law enforcement, but you're in the court system because you have due process, you have a number of rights, but you cannot get into criminal prosecution. This is the scariest thing that I've heard of in a long time.
How does the city attorney?
No, I know. That's what I was saying.
Step up and say you can't do that. And I keep thinking there's going to be some story that pops up in the news where they're like, oh, wait a minute here. There's a misunderstanding. No, that's not how this works. You'd be referred to the local prosecutor, and then you would have, be in the judicial system. But that's not the way any of these stories read. The stories read that this group of political appointees get to decide whether you go to jail or not. Like, what country are we in?
I mean, it's really scary. It's really...
Was it not Springfield that dealt with the issue, and maybe if it wasn't Springfield, it was somewhere. It had to do with traffic cameras and automatically issuing people tickets, and then they didn't have a due process. Like, they couldn't challenge it in
I
court.
can remember. That would have been before I was...
Yeah, and so I want to say there was either a court case or a potential court case, but it resulted in, and maybe it wasn't Springfield, maybe it was St. Louis, but because it was recognized that, hey, this is circumventing the person's constitutional rights. You cannot give them a ticket without giving them the ability to fight it in the court of law. And so they quit doing it the way that they were doing it. And this feels even worse than that because they can put you in jail.
And now you have to go and get somebody to challenge it. You're going to have to say, can you go get a donation of $3,000 so you can file a lawsuit?
But even just the fear of all of this is enough to stop a lot of average citizens from even running. Because listen, so much of it is perception, and they can say all they want. Well, no, we're the most honest people ever. Well, first off, if you were the most honest people ever, then we wouldn't have to have these donation rules put in place. We're told this is to protect us from you being corrupt. Yeah. So clearly you're signaling that you can't be trusted. But the average citizen who they just see these people, all of these people as part of the same grouping, that they all know each other, they all support each other, and then you're thinking of challenging one of these people knowing that their allies in your mind can find. You've never done this before. You're unfamiliar with campaign finance laws. You don't, do I need to hire an attorney? But even, in order to do this. And it just gets to the point where the average citizen's like, I'm not even, are you kidding me? They can put me in jail if I screw up this thing? I don't think so. And so I think that's a large part of it.
Because of the two attorneys that are on there. And I would have to say that they probably should know that this is unconstitutional. I won't say their names. People probably know who they are. But, I mean, this is really crazy to me. And if this is implemented, then you're going to have standing to challenge it. I mean, I can't even believe how much worse it's gotten since I was there. I mean, I thought it was bad that I had to hire an attorney and go through a whole court process. But now that you don't have no due process rights.
Well, and they talk about all these different organizations that support this. Well, of course they do, because it takes power away from the average citizen, and it makes the influence of these groups even more significant and
And you know
powerful.
what? Because then they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
again, these
it's
endorsements,
group think.
it
Like,
essentially puts it gives the most significant amount of influence in elections to these groups and their endorsements,
right.
because that is so massively powerful. And so yeah, I'm sure they support limiting the amount of influence the average citizen could have over a candidate by way of donation, because then that just makes them a more important player in the room, because it just really limits the power that the average person could have in the city, and it just makes them more
And the
powerful.
city attorney, I can't believe would even agree to this.
I mean,
I mean,
it's
I am just completely shocked.
the thing, and I know there's so many aspects of this, but I
It's-
haven't figured out if Schrag is, if he knows what's going, or if he's being used, if he's just sort of clueless as to how deviant people in politics can be, and they're sort of using him as the friendly face to try to get this implemented without him recognizing the implications of it, or if he
yeah.
knows. I just don't know. He seems like a nice guy, but I don't know.
Well, and this is really disappointing that their city manager would put this forward because
Well,
this
I
is
don't
on.
know that I mean, none of the articles mention him any. I mean, this seems like a city
There's
attorney. I don't know. It's
there's
also screwy.
I know, but I mean, most of the time, this stuff comes from the staff.
One of,
So that's what I'm saying. Like,
but they've been talk. I think they've been talking about this well before the new city attorney
okay,
was put into place, because
well,
I've
then
talked
maybe it's
about
not.
this before,
Yeah,
about the lunacy of this, and just the insanity, and the part of it that's that I don't know. One of the texts that did come in before we get a traffic update here noted that it also does give an advantage to some of what are currently the more influential people, because they may have, and the person who texted in, I'm not going to read through it all, but said, like, my employer, for example, not mine, but the person who
yeah,
texted in, who he said is a great employer, but it has tons of LLCs out there. Well, they can give the maximum amount through all the different LLCs as a
yeah,
donation. And so the people that supposedly this sort of thing is protecting us all from, it doesn't anyhow, because of just all the different avenues of influence that are there and that exist. All of the, aside from the what appears to be this new judicial system that they're wanting to set up outside the confines of the Constitution and our constitutional and human rights, it just doesn't work anyway.
I know.
This does not result in having a more responsive government. People who are in there now, if they are going to be influenced by influential people who give them a lot of money and they ignore the average citizen, cutting off that is not going to change how they behave. That
Yeah,
is not going to change their priorities any whatsoever. The system is not the problem. If there is a problem, it's the current elected
yeah.
officials that are the
And
problem.
the attorneys and judges listening to this, which I know some of the judges listen, should be outraged
I
at
think
this. They should
here's
be
what
outraged.
here's what we
This
ought
is
to do.
so unconstitutional.
If this is legit, then we should just start an initiative petition in which we just, I don't know, appoint a 3-person panel that allows any citizen to accuse a council member of being dishonest. And if the panel finds them guilty, then we can fine them up to $1,000 and throw them in jail for 6 weeks. I mean, apparently that's the way it works now. So maybe that's what we'll do.
Wow.
We'll have to come up with some
Yeah,
clever name.
pandemic to throw people in jail, but we don't have a pandemic anymore. We just do it like it's our everyday
Just
business.
set up a committee or use one that's currently there, because
Oh.
that's what this new plan, this new proposal would do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then mostly sunny with a high near 74. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78.
Right, I do have other things to cover, but I referenced the red because I was thinking about how it is that apparently the city of Springfield's wanting to set up this campaign finance thing in which it appears to bypass the judicial system,
Right.
and just has political appointees that can throw in jail people that they decide violate these rules. And I was thinking about the red cameras in Springfield. So I found this story from Courthouse News Service, October 18th, 2010, and it reads in part, Springfield's red light ticket system was taken offline in March after the Missouri Supreme Court ruled that Springfield's method of handling red light tickets violated state law. The state Supreme Court ruled that Springfield had to handle the tickets through its court system, not through administrative hearings. And so it went on for this. So I thought that was a thing that had occurred, that they said you can't just sort of create your own little judicial system in which people don't have
because
their rights any longer.
Well, because when you give criminal when you have a criminal prosecution and you're giving, jail time, that's something that only the courts can do.
Well, apparently not in the minds of the brilliant
and the three attorneys that happen to be in charge of this.
I almost want him to go ahead and pass this just to see. I mean, it would have to get struck down.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Maybe
this is going to make national news. This is insane.
Baristas at a Starbucks near Sunshine and Campbell in Springfield voted Tuesday to unionize, joining a growing national labor push tied to Starbucks Worker United. According to the union, workers at the store voted 10-4 on April 21st to join Starbucks Workers United, making it the 19th unionized Starbucks location in Missouri. Good for the 4. I don't know what motivated them to vote against it, but
which ones? There's one on Campbell that's further south.
It's
on Sunshine.
It says near Sunshine, and
it's probably the one at South Campbell.
Yeah, what's
probably
near
the one
Sunshine and Campbell? What I'm trying to think.
That
one is near there. Do you know, Sarah?
I don't.
Near Sunshine and
Well, there's one on Sunshine across from Bass Pro, and then there's one South Campbell. I can't remember. I don't think there was one.
Oh no, I know. It's by the McDonald's and the Chick-fil-A. No, it's on Sunshine, not Campbell. That's
duh. But you said it was on Campbell.
Well, this says near Sunshine and Campbell.
Oh, okay. So the one across from Bass Pro.
So it's not near it's on Sunshine. Near anyway, nitpicking here.
Oh my gosh.
Boy, that was painful. Well, the funny thing is,
he turned the radio off. Oh, this is just horrible.
Of course, what's funny is in my head I was thinking Glenstone, so that's why I was so confused. I was thinking anyway.
Okay, so
I mean, to me, it makes.
Well, now we have something to talk to them about when we drive through there.
I don't go to Starbucks unless I'm picking something up for the girl child or my wife, and it's not for any political reasons. I'm not a coffee drinker anyhow, and so I don't know. I like the iced tea at 7 Brew if I'm going to get an iced tea. Although I hit Dutch Brothers,
7 Brew.
Yeah, Dutch Brothers. They we stopped by there a couple times for iced tea, and I like their iced tea too. I'm just straight up iced tea guy.
I know 7 Brew is so crazy busy, and they opened one in Nixa, and they gave free drinks out. I mean, there were like people all over the place. It was crazy.
See, I figured them. Now I don't have any insight other than my own observation, but I think what they do is brilliant because they also had open one in Republic, and when they first opened, they would have any given day free drinks, but it was 4 drinks. Like you have these, come in today and get one of these.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's
you can
all
choose
that they
from
had.
the 4.
Yeah, you can choose from the 4.
Limited to 4.
But you can't get anything else that day, right? Okay. And so then they do it, and they'll rotate it. Oh, this day, if you come through, you can get one of these 4 drinks for free. And That's so brilliant on two fronts. One, because it's drawing people in, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. But what a great way to train your new employees, not just on the
Yeah, right.
system, but to really know the product.
Right.
As opposed to just sort of training ahead of time and then opening it up, and you have 80 different menu items that you're not overly familiar with, and you have to do a crash course, and people may ask you, well, what about this and that? And you're like, I'm not really sure. If you spend an entire day on 4 specific drinks and then the next day on another 4 and the next day, that's just
Yeah,
such a
I think
brilliant way to get your employees really in tune with your product line.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's
That's why
part of the
they get it,
motivation
I'm
of it, but
sure.
it's just so smart. Well, and
And
their
you know,
employees are great.
they have such great customer service. Have you noticed, like, you can't go anywhere and have good customer service anymore?
Some places.
This is really, really great.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
the kids are so nice.
They are. Well,
Okay,
and so then back to Starbucks.
Okay.
In the meantime, so while you have companies like Seven Brew that are just out there and have, boom, fast, great, friendly customer service, in my mind, when I think about, I'm like, you're union, because they go on well, it's just, we've got to unionize because, the job's so horrible and we're so abused. And I'm like, you are the most spoiled,
gosh.
entitled. You have
That's
no
so
concept of
entitlement.
what it to me screams entitled, spoiled employees who have never really actually been forced to do anything challenging. The minute they do, they squall about it. Oh, and that makes me not want to go there, just because I don't want to deal with people like that. I would much rather deal with the Seven Brew style person that just seems happy
making
and
coffee.
interactive. Well, Lord,
I mean,
you don't know how.
insane. Just because, like, it's busy and you're having to do it at a fast pace.
No different than working in the coal mines.
People, they did not.
It's the same thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
20 hours in the coal mine, not knowing if you were going to make it out alive every day. It's no different.
Hear all the military members in Iran hear the story. Oh, really? That's so stressful for you. I flew my F-22 over, Iran. I mean, give me a break. This is ridiculous.
I know.
I'm so entitled. Employers, we just get this all the time with, I had
It's
this one
pathetic.
girl, and I will never say names, or, that was talking about how stressful it is in my law firm. And I think I'm a good employer, but the stressful part is honestly being, a lawyer,
Well,
a paralegal.
right. That's part
And I'm
of
like,
it.
you're answering the phone. I know it can be stressful, but you're answering the phone. I'm not getting my butt kicked and getting yelled at by judges every day. You have to answer the phone. She's like, it's way too stressful. I gotta leave. I'm like,
But that's the other thing, and I think that's part of what you see with some of these Starbucks employees is they think that just something being stressful means that they're being abused. That things, if you aren't doing something in life that is challenging, and I don't mean stressful to the point that you're, waiting for the old Jefferson Bridge to open up so you can get on a top of it and end it all. But the normal stresses in life, you need to have those things in life. That's how you improve. That's how you get sharper and better. But you have these people that have been raised in bubbles who think
helicopter parents.
anything
Yeah.
challenging is an injustice. That's how they see it, as opposed to, hey, this is a challenge. And what's sad is people who accept challenges and make their way through challenges always feel better on the other side. Look at what I did. Look what I accomplished. And the bigger the challenge, the greater the sense of self-worth and accomplishment is, and self-confidence
Yes.
is. Is it any wonder? I mean, these people probably have no self-confidence on the whole. They tell themselves they do, but in reality, they don't. Their entire world revolves around other people approving of them and supporting them. And anything that is the slightest bit hard, they think that something's being done to them wrong, that they are being abused. And it's just, it's embarrassing for our society that people like this exist.
Yeah,
And I don't, it's not out of anger or protest. I just don't like being around people like that. And so when I know that's the culture that exists in a particular business, I'd much rather go somewhere, again, where they're just people that are grateful and enjoy what they're doing at a place like Seven Brew. And, that's just me.
Well, I mean, the entitlement culture is just so is so bad. But
Well,
I mean, the good thing is that there are people that raise your kids not to be like that. That's one thing that we always did. We had our kids be in sports and do an instrument for the discipline, and they just hated that because they played all my kids played violin, and will still play, and they had to do at least one sport, and they complain all the time, whatever. And then when they get older, get jobs, but they have to be out there, and they have to be challenged.
you need to
I
do
mean,
things
you
that are
have to
hard.
be, yeah, because then they're going to grow up and they're going to think it's stressful making coffee.
Well,
I'm like,
you'll end up working at
love.
Starbucks.
Can I please be a trainer at this? I would love to go there
You-
and be
but-
their
but-
manager.
But here's what would happen:
Step it up.
you wouldn't last there because they would
Yeah.
get rid of you.
Yeah, I would not
Because
work
you
in
were
that
triggering
culture. Yeah.
people. You're just too. They would need every 15 minutes a mental health timeout to get away from you. They would. I mean, that's the
I mean,
irony is the culture and the parents that felt that they were somehow protecting their kids by raising them in an environment in which they had absolutely no challenges and felt like challenges were somehow wrong have rendered them utterly useless in society as a contributing member. And they have created these fragile little individuals that their worlds are dependent on other people's approval and other people praising them. And so they did it. I've always equated it to, you think of The Bubble Boy. Remember the movie The Bubble
yeah,
Boy
yeah,
with John
right.
Travolta?
Yeah.
And he, didn't have any immune system. And so even just one tiny little germ would completely potentially destroy his entire health. And that's what's happened with so many of these young people that were raised without any emotional challenges, without
Yeah.
intellectual challenges, without physical challenges. They have no emotional immune systems, intellectual immune systems, and so they can't handle anything at all.
It's so sad
It
because
is sad.
they're capable of so much more, and that's why you need somebody that like their managers or whoever's in charge to challenge them, and they will rise to the challenge. But I'm sure they're like, hey, if this is too hard to make a mocha, I mean, you need to go out and protest.
Like, now, everyone, here's your new manager. And they're like, well, is that whip for cosplay? Like,
Oh my gosh, this is so
faster,
crazy.
whip. I am the whip master. More with Christy Filnecki. I'm Nick Reed. Hardscapes and outdoor, all of your outdoor living needs. And I know it's become a common theme, but for my family, it's just really enhanced our time together, giving us a space outdoors. I'm just a big believer that sunshine and outdoors is a good thing, fresh air for your overall mental and physical health. And if you don't really have an outdoor living area, you find yourself inside all the time. But as I had Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor develop that patio, the outdoor living space with a fire pit and just an area for my Traeger and plenty of room to accommodate guests coming over, we spend so much more time, quality time outside. And Butters loves it because Butters loves it when we're outside with her. She can go in and out as she pleases with her doggy door, but she prefers it when we're out there. Whether it be proper drainage, lighting for your home, landscaping, or hardscaping, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, you can find them at hunterhardscapes.com. I found this to be a really funny story that made a number of different did it make numerous? Yeah, news outlets. So here's a headline news leader. No Kings protesters receive citation weeks after Springfield event. KY3, Springfield woman says police issued ticket weeks after protest question investigation methods. KY3, Flock safety addresses concerns about its cameras in Springfield. So this is one of the No Kings protests, and from March 28th. And what they did is they blocked. They just marched in the middle of Battlefield down the street.
Yeah.
All right. So clearly a danger. And
that was that unicorn in the middle of the street.
Was it? and the city has done a significant amount of promoting an effort for pedestrian safety. They talk about how many pedestrians get hit and killed by cars and injured by cars. And so there's all these different efforts. And so here you have these left-wing idiots that are marching down in the middle of a very busy street in Springfield. Well, so weeks later, what happens is they start getting tickets for this. And because,
Well, they should have just been thrown in jail.
They should, yeah.
Why give a ticket? You just put them in jail in Springfield.
And so I love how people just throw around terms. And the KY3 story reads, a Springfield protester says police are using drones and videos to retroactively ticket demonstrators, which a lot of tickets are retroactive. I mean, this isn't anything new. Quote, Big Brother is watching. That's policing by AI. That's policing retroactively. Now, I don't know that this is policing by AI. I feel like sometimes people, anytime they just throw that around. Like, this is AI. Like, I don't know that that's exactly what this is. One of the left-wing nut jobs said, my issue isn't that I've got to pay a ticket. I take full responsibility for what I do. Sending out tickets retroactively using drone footage, using body cams, and possibly using flock cameras, even though they tell us that they only use those to record license plate. They record whatever is behind the license plate. That's what I'm concerned about. Well, that doesn't apply to them.
Well, you know what? That's not a good defense. I'm sorry.
But here's what's funny, and the KY3 story. So flock, these are the cameras that will, I guess, like take pictures of license plates, and but what they do is people say, well, but they got someone for using a cell phone, and that wasn't a license plate issue. But when the camera took a picture of the license plate in the vehicle, it caught the person, like also in the car. Mm-hmm. So these people weren't in or around cars; they were just marching down the street. But what's hilarious about is this entire presentation, to me, is sort of based on the premise that, well, how is it that they figured out who we were? There were videos posted on the internet of these people proudly marching. This was not a difficult thing to figure out. You're in the public. You're on video. Many of these people themselves posted the videos, yet they sit around, they're like, it must have been AI that caught us. Or maybe, you idiots, the fact that you posted proudly of your people were driving the whole point.
I mean, this has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, these are No Kings protesters. Not talking about a break.
Retroactive?
I know.
You can't be charged. You're giving a ticket. What do you think police investigators do? Why would you need to investigate something that happened? If you could only be given a ticket or fined or whatever at that moment.
Wait a minute, you're charging me with murder. I killed that person 2 months ago. You can't retroactively charge me with that murder. What sort of AI did you use?
See for the judge. He did that 2 months ago. It's just
well, the other thing,
punch that lady 2 months ago. How in the world do you know that I did that?
AI.
Just be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Say AI. Well, and I wasn't alive during the era of the 60s and protesters during the 60s, but it was always my impression, one of the points was to get arrested, was to get hauled off. These protesters today are so worthless that it's
I
like,
know.
give me a ticket for protesting. What? Like, they don't even want a ticket.
I know we talked about the difference in the protesters a
I
couple
know.
weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, nowadays they don't even when
No,
they go,
I mean, we're
they go on some of these. Have you ever whenever these left wingers go on hunger strikes, and it literally they still get snacks and things. We talked about this. I mean, it was a few years ago. I don't know what the left wing protesters were, but it was some hunger strike going on, I think, college campus. But it turned out, well, they were allowed to eat every 90 minutes, but, still it was a hunger strike. I don't think that's how that works.
talking about dumbing down.
I got hungry.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
We got Christy Fulnecki here. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Miss Universe Puerto Rico has announced its second male contestant since 2023, revealing yesterday
That's disgusting.
that the male model Gabriel Rodriguez Velasquez is among this year's competitors vying for the crown. Which all this tells me is that what is going on with the women in Puerto Rico, where twice in a row they seemingly have collectively agreed that the best woman there, the most attractive and female-like woman there, is actually a man. Or not the second year in a row, but the second year in just, the second time in just a number of years. That's it's not like a real big compliment to your female population.
They do like the swimsuit thing.
I don't know. Maybe swimming trunks.
Be a little challenging.
Very carefully.
I mean, even a tight gown. How are you?
It's all about the angle.
In the walk. You got to be
this is
very, very
really
careful
crazy.
as to not overstimulate yourself while you're sashaying around,
I mean,
It
there's
could
a
be
number
very-
of questions I can ask about this topic.
Maybe that's the talent portion.
Unless it's removed or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or yep, maybe. I don't know. There's like I said,
I'm not sure how that works. Maybe that's a requirement in the Miss
detachable.
Universe that has to be removed before you go in for your
Yeah.
audition.
Yeah, I don't know, but Gabriel Rodriguez Velasquez will be vying for that crown.
Oh, that's terrible.
And like I said, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be a real big compliment to the women of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, there's got to be some prettier women there. I just want to know about this whole alien thing. I'm so interested in this.
Yeah, there's another ufologist that disappeared, an individual that apparently had posted on social media at one point, just so everyone knows I'm not suicidal. This is in the, right now with all of these different disappearances. And then he apparently shot himself in front of law enforcement, they're saying. But yeah, these are really adding up, and you're seeing Congressman Burleson increasingly pop because he's on the committee that well, a lot of these individuals he's familiar with because of his office having communications with them on issues such as UFOs or UFLs or whatever they're called now, and so increasingly he's popping up on a number of these shows.
You watch them and you're like, well, I wonder if this is real. But I mean, one of them is a female physicist that was talking about the P45 or whatever, that these were humans in the future, 45,000 years.
Interesting. Christy Fulnacki, thank you. Sorry, out of time.
All right, next time we'll talk about the aliens.
Springfield Talk 1041. And good day, everyone. Welcome to Hour 3. My name's Nick Reed. We got a Heroes Breakfast tomorrow at Scramblers. If you are a veteran and you come by as we broadcast live from 6A to 9A, then you are going to get free breakfast. Well, it's free for you, thanks to the Warrior's Journey, Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and also Scramblers, the good folks there. So that will be tomorrow, a Heroes Breakfast to kick off the weekend. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Totally awesome. Will we see her tomorrow? Is tomorrow? Yeah. She
I think so.
barring a closing with one of you all every so often. Well, actually, no, she kicks the show off now.
Yes, at 6 a.m.
So that shouldn't be a problem when she's in that 6 a.m. slot. When she occupied the 8:30 or 8 o'clock slot, sometimes she would be doing a closing with one of you all on your new home, and so she just would not be able to make it. But given that 6 a.m. time slot that she helps kick off the show every other Friday with us, that should not be a conflict that we run into too often. But she's a fantastic resource. One of the reasons that she comes out is to talk directly to you. There are a lot of people that all they see in that industry is a dollar sign above the head of every potential client. And so the moment that they sense that you're not really ready right now to get that house on the market or ready right now to purchase that home, they're not necessarily interested in you because they see it as a waste of their time. They're spending time with you. They're not spending time closing with someone. That's not how Emily operates. She sees herself as a resource to be utilized by you. So do just that. She's not just there to help you make it happen. She's there to answer your questions as well. So if you're thinking, maybe we'll sell our house one day, or we're going to, but it's in the fall, so I don't need to worry about it now. If you do it now, reach out now, find out what things that you can start doing now so that you don't find yourself cramming in order to get that house on the market. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And I mentioned the Starbucks, another Starbucks locally here, the one over there near Bass Pro on Sunshine. Unionizing, a 10-4 vote, voted to unionize. And Fox Business has a story noting that Seattle could lose hundreds of millions in tax revenue as Starbucks is expanding, not in that home base of Washington, but in Tennessee. You know, lower taxes, smaller government, red state. Independent journalist Brandy Cruz joining Varney and Company to discuss Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson's struggles with business as her progressive tax revenue and jobless pay for striking workers have citizens worried about the economy. Seattle slated to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue as Starbucks expands operations in Tennessee, a local outlet estimates. Fox 13 Seattle reported Tuesday that the Emerald City could lose up to $750 million in tax revenue in the coming years as Starbucks expands in Tennessee instead of Washington. In a press release Tuesday, Starbucks announced it will invest $100 million and bring 2,000 new jobs, not to Washington, but to Nashville. Quote, Starbucks has major plans for its newest business location where it will employ up to 2,000 people over the next several years to serve in a variety of corporate-related operations, the announcement said. The Nashville office will directly support continued coffee house expansion and rising customer demands, particularly in the southeastern U.S., while working closely with the company's global headquarters in Seattle. And there's another story in the New York Post that I'm not going to go through totally because we've got Author of the Week coming up. Mass exodus from California is driven by poor people. Now they're thriving. And we hear so much, and maybe actually after Author of the Week, we'll get into this a little bit. We hear so much about people fleeing Democrat states and going to Republican states, but we don't really ever check in to see how they're doing. Well, apparently very well. These aren't people who leave California downtrodden and end up downtrodden in Florida. They end up doing very well. And what is happening in California versus red states like Tennessee and Texas and Florida is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer in California. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer in New York City. The middle class essentially dissolves and goes away. This is what happens in every socialist regime. You don't have a middle class in Venezuela. You do not have a middle class in Cuba. You do not have a middle class in former Soviet Union. They didn't exist. The elites were the wealthy, and then you had everyone else that was poor. And increasingly, this is what is happening to blue states. While middle class thrives, in red states like Florida, they die. In blue states like California. And like everything else from the left, the things they say they support, they do the opposite. And they go on. And I'm sure Gavin Newsom, when he runs for president, will be talking about the, quote, income gap that exists in this country. Yet whenever his party gets in control and implements their policies, the income gap does not shrink. Instead, it expands greatly to the end game of an eventual complete absence of any middle-class Americans. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon, and then mostly sunny with a high near 74. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78.
Thursday means it's time for Author of the Week, sponsored by the incredible folks at ABC Books on North Glenstone. And our author this week is Jan Jekielek, the book, New York Times bestseller, Killed to Order, the author of that book. Also, he's a senior editor at Epoch Times and host of American Thought Leaders. I appreciate you being with us. I know you have a lot of fans in the audience, particularly being senior editor of the Epoch Times, and now as our author of the week, Killed to Order. The title itself, when I first saw it, oftentimes it lends itself some idea of what the book is about. Had no clue whatsoever, and then learned of the subject matter, which I was somewhat familiar with, but never a deep dive on it. And this is China with the selling of organs and the forced harvesting. And I'd like to just start off, if you would, tell us a little bit about why it was that you decided to write the book.
Well, this is kind of a next level of organ trafficking. And by the way, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm honored to be the author of the week here with you, Nick. We hear about organ trafficking in a variety of there's scenarios. There's these urban myths around people waking up on ice with kidneys missing and things like this. And that's real. That happened. That has happened and happens. And there's black market organ rings in different parts of the world, even in America, from what I've heard. Although I don't know how developed the research is on that. But what's happening in China is a whole different level. And I mean, if I may, I could explain like how it works. It
Please.
takes a few steps to get there. But okay, so you have first of all, you have a state actor. So it's not a black market organ. It's actually part of their policy. You could kind of call it gray. Someone mentioned this as an idea, right? Because the super elites know it's real and benefit from it. But most people in the country, especially the 40% that are way below the poverty line in China, would have never have any access to it, and exists in this world of rumor, almost like if you're not good, you're going to get organ harvested or something like that. So that's one. And also because it's a state actor, they have the power, one, to push massive propaganda through a population. They have a habit of doing this over decades, right? There's always at least one black class in communist China, and actually any communist society. But for example, right, the first one in communist China was the landowners, and the landowners, the communists wanted to take their land, but they had to kind of convince people, right, that that's okay, that somehow it's okay to struggle against these people, to break them, to take their stuff, and that there's no moral quandary here. And so propaganda, dehumanizing propaganda, is extremely effective instead of tricking us in a way. It's like a quirk of our psychology, where we kind of are able to go along with just doing horrible things to people, or even participating in it if we start believing that they're evil, they're bad, or they're pariahs, they're dangerous, this whole kind of thing. Okay, so this dehumanizing propaganda and the ability to push it through an entire population is key. And the second part is you have to have the ability to incarcerate people en masse. Okay. And so in an ethical transplantation system, like say we have in America, okay, if someone's going to be, let's say, a heart donor, okay, they have to have a catastrophic accident, and they're not coming back from that because you can't survive losing your heart. So there's a whole ethics team that decides once that car accident or motorcycle accident happens that this person really isn't coming back, and it's okay to transplant from them. And then if you're the recipient, right, our bodies reject foreign things, whatever they are, including organs. And so the way we deal with that is we, of course, use anti-rejection drugs, but also we try to match the blood type and the tissue type as closely as possible so the organ doesn't get rejected. And the size has to match. So the combination of all that is a rare scenario. This is the reason I'm explaining this, okay? You might wait months or years to get that transplant. And then so some people get desperate. And actually, in communist China, they take advantage of that desperation. So as an example of that, one of the initial whistleblowers in 2005, 2006, transplant surgeon, he had a patient who said, look, I'm tired of waiting. The guy had a terrible heart condition. I'm going to China and getting it done in 2 weeks, right? Scheduled. And the Jakob Levy, the transplant surgeon, couldn't believe it, that this was like, what are you even saying? And except the guy went and did it, came back and got that heart in 2 weeks. And the massive red flags here are, one, that catastrophic accident is scheduled, right? So someone's being killed here for the organ. And the other thing is that you've got this 2 week wait time, which is just impossible in any normal situation. And this is where the state reality comes into play, okay? Because so you remember these black classes, right? In 1999, the Chinese Communist Party picked a new black class. It was a spiritual discipline called Falun Gong. There were 70 to 100 million practitioners of truthfulness, compassion, tolerance. They were doing this in China. It's a very grassroots, very bottom-up, deep spirituality, but no like worship or collection of money. It's very self-directed and very grassroots, no hierarchy even, okay? And the regime decided we're going to eradicate this. The dictator at the time, Jiang Zemin, said, I'm eradicating this. And so they pushed massive propaganda through the system, as they always do when they create this black class, dehumanize these people. But then these people, they didn't actually break easily. And this is, part of the way it works is it's not that you don't necessarily kill the whole black class. You just get them to kind of genuflect at the altar of communism, of the Chinese Communist Party, and say, no, everything about my life, everything I did was wrong. You are right. And I was evil, or whatever it is. And these people wouldn't do it. They stuck to that truthfulness, compassion, tolerance. So they incarcerated 1 million of them. And this is what set up killed to order. Okay, that because now you have 1 million or 2 million people, let's say. The State Department estimated that half of all of them in 2005, for example, were Falun Gong practitioners in a massive incarceration system of China. And they blood type them and tissue type them ahead of time, right? So now you have a database of all of these vitals, right? And the moment that the transplant tourist comes, let's say 100 or 200 grand for a heart, that transaction is made. The prisoner of conscience that's incarcerated is already pre-matched to that person because there's so many in the database that there's a match that can be found already. And that's when that person is shipped and killed to order. And that's the reason for my book. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. And for years, it was very hard to even get through that this is real.
Right.
And today, somehow, we are ready for that. And I mean, as a testament, thank you for saying it's the New York Times bestseller. It's against all odds. It's really resonating with people now. This is horrible. It's an atrocity. It needs to end.
This may seem, it's a macabre question, but I just try to envision how this plays out. And once a purchaser, is matched up, and that individual is, I get, the transaction, for lack of a better term, is getting ready to take place. Is there a pretty standard process? Do they arrest the person? Do they take them to a particular hospital? What is that process like?
Well, so here's the thing, right? And there's kind of two stages, if you will, in this whole development of this industry. Okay, so now I'm answering in a bit of a roundabout way, but you'll see why in a moment. Okay, they in 2000 they started incarcerated Falun Gong practitioners en masse. Okay, so now this blood type and tissue typing is done in the prisons themselves because there's so many people, and they're also, by the way, known to be particularly healthy. Don't drink, don't smoke, that kind of stuff, okay. Right? And also just the energies around the slow motion exercises they do are very positive. So the victims are all already incarcerated, okay? And so it makes it for a particularly vulnerable population because they've also all been dehumanized. That everybody's been told that these are evil people, that it's, basically it's okay to do horrible things to them, right? And so they grow that transplant industry geometrically. Starting in 2000 to 2005, we see this explosion of hospitals. And then it actually kind of keeps growing, but maybe not as quick a pace after 2005. In 2016, Ethan Gutmann, one of the heroes of this particular research around this issue, he actually has his own book called The Xinjiang Procedure, just recently come out. I'll explain why that's important in a moment. But basically, he estimates in front of Congress under oath that 60 to 100,000 transplants are being done per year on the backs mostly of the Falun Gong. But at that time, okay, also, nothing's been done for a very long time. Like there's been sort of some people trying to popularize it, like Ethan, like a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of people. But there's been no major attempt to stop this. And so the Chinese regime picks another group, the Uyghur Muslims in the northwest of China. They dehumanize them further. Okay, they incarcerate perhaps 1 million or more in these concentration camps. And even that whole region up there is actually, in a way, it is very much under police control, but in a way, it's like a prison in itself. And so they actually start doing this genotyping and blood typing now, which allows for the matching across the whole population. So a huge portion of that population has been. So in that case, they can actually go to someone's home and just take them. And this is what some of the stuff that Ethan documents in the Xinjiang procedure. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. We are talking with our author of the week, Jan Jekielek, the New York Times best-selling book, Killed to Order. One of the things that you warn about is that the approach, the philosophy, I guess, that the Chinese use to justify this just horrific nightmare of medicine is actually seeping into Western medicine.
Oh, 100%. And this is so, we're not innocent in this, okay? And so this is the problem with engagement. You remember there was this huge narrative, actually, in a way, Epoch Times was founded to counter this narrative, that we were going to liberalize China through pumping lots of cash into the country.
Yeah, right.
We're going to turn them into Taiwan or South Korea or something like that. This was all a big subterfuge, and I could explain, how we knew that. But the effect, see, when you do have this deep engagement, which we have had, and of course they've weaponized all sorts of aspects of our free society against us. I talk a lot about that in my book, Killed to Order. We also have been, for example, training the transplant surgeons, not all of them, but a good number of them. We also provide all sorts of technologies like ECMO, which allow, sort of perfusion. It means you can keep a body slightly alive for a lot longer, even when the heart and lungs are not functioning. This is, of course, a life-saving technology here. Over there, it's used to support the Killed to Order industry. We provide these kind of solutions, various types of materials for the transplantation. And we have big funding relationships with hospitals and research institutions. I mean, listen, there is a paper in the American Journal of Transplantation titled Execution by Organ Procurement. The authors looked at the Chinese transplant literature, and they found 70 out of something like 2,000 plus papers that they looked at, 71 papers had in their public peer-reviewed research, in the methods section of that public research, they saw that the dead donor rule had been violated in at least 71 instances. I think they had really stringent criteria. What it means is that the people in that research had been killed by their organs having been removed. And the way that I read that, it's so normalized over there, the main way they do it, that they even forget that you can't, that it's a problem to write that into your research methods. And in fact, there are a few institutions in the world, not many, that have taken a stand. And there's the ISHLT, the International Society for Heart and Lung Transplantation. They actually will not, their stand, and it's significant because so few have done anything like this, right? They said, we will not accept any research papers from China because you're involved in something as terrible as this.
I've read, as so many others have, about the increased number of people in Canada that have fallen subject to their MAID program with the medically assisted suicide. And then Dr. Oz recently revealed the massive spike in hospice care usage out in California. And it's been noted that probably for financial reasons or concerns that it's for financial reasons, shipping people that still could survive because of medical treatment, but it's cheaper instead to shift them over to hospice and then just deny them life-saving treatments. And this sort of transactional approach that increasingly we're taking here, in which lives aren't sacred, I worry that I see a little bit of what's happening in China happening here in the United States.
Oh, 100%. And so a big theme in my book is this distinction between what we traditionally think of medicine as Hippocratic medicine. The medical practitioner does the best they can for the individual, and whatever intervention they use has to harm the individual the least possible, right? A holistic view of that person and trying to help them alone. And then that the emergent property of all of those interactions is how healthcare is done. But the other side of it is something called utilitarian bioethics. And that's the greatest good, or the greatest happiness, even sometimes it's called, for the greatest number. That means you can sacrifice a few for the good of the many. It's this mentality, right? And what I realized while writing Killed to Order was that there's this maxim from Joseph Stalin: to make an omelet, you need to break a few eggs. And I thought, my God, that is actually utilitarian bioethics personified. First of all, that's why you get atrocity in every communist society, because the greatest good there is the survival and supremacy of the Communist Party. but also someone decides what this greatest good is, right? And this, in the medical scenario, you even with the best intentions, you can't have perfect knowledge, and you're sort of removing that inherent dignity of every human being that's central to Hippocratic medicine. And that, because the extreme of that is forced organ harvesting in China, and again because of this engagement, we've been shifting faster. There's also been a push for that in America, by the way. It's not entirely because of communist China's model, but it accelerates that. It kind of justifies it. You know how we kind of copied zero COVID policy in a way, these kind of crazy lockdown policies during COVID, right? It really made no sense for dealing with a respiratory virus at all. Well, part of that was we saw what China did, and China said, "Hey, look, it worked great." And we're like, oh, it's almost like we've kind of been conditioned to believe that something like that can actually work. And so that played a huge role in getting us to do it too. So again, this engagement, it's led to some very dark things.
And then just any final thoughts you have before we let you go today. And again, just want to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it and the insight. And of course, people can learn so much more by picking up the New York Times best-selling book, Killed to Order. Final thoughts for listeners today?
Well, my first final thought is just simply that this is an issue where awareness actually changes things. And that's why I'm so excited that the book has become so popular, because as people start calling their senators, like for example, there's 2 federal bills right now that have been passed in the House near unanimously. All you need for one of them is called the Falun Gong and Victims of Forced Organ Harvesting Act, S4009. All you need to do is call your senator, and just say, hey, look, this is very important. This is an atrocity. We shouldn't be a party to it. It's a simple piece of legislation that can easily passes the Senate with a little bit of will. And I just want to encourage people to check it out and understand that, if you're asking questions, how can this possibly be real? I answer all of those questions because I've been working on this for 20 years, and we finally have a chance to shift this a bit.
Our author of the week, Jan Jekielek, the book, New York Times bestseller, Killed to Order, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Again, thank you so much. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Yes, the characters. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, refinancing needs. You may not even think that you can benefit from a refinance. Perhaps your rate is locked in at a rate that's a bit lower than what interest rates are now. But if you have other debt, you could end up coming out ahead. And maybe not. We've talked about this recently. I think it was Alex. It was Alex or Anthony, one of the characters, about somebody who had reached out about potentially refinancing, and they were going to save a little bit, but it just wasn't enough to where it was worth it. But the question was, well, have you thought about, buying a different home, selling? Like, well, we'd love to move closer to our kids, but we just don't think it's in the cards. And they started looking at the numbers and found that it was actually financially advantageous for them to do that. So that's what you get with the characters in their team. And obviously they're not magicians and they can't always make magic happen, but there's a lot of unknowns out there for you. And you may find out that selling or buying or moving or refinancing or reverse mortgaging something that you didn't think was in the cards might be in the cards for you. Utilize them as a resource for any home loan questions or refinancing questions or needs. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. Tomorrow we do have a Heroes Breakfast at Scramblers. If you are a veteran, come by, get free breakfast tomorrow at Scramblers from 6A to 9A. That thanks to Scramblers, Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the Warrior's Journey.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 59. For your Friday, a 70% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and then mostly sunny with a high near 74. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 78. And Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, one of the biggest reasons people end up dealing with HVAC issues is actually a pretty simple one. Oftentimes, it's lack of maintenance. And, it happens. Out of sight, out of mind, life just happens and you forget. But over time, things like dirty filters and clogged outdoor units, that can really affect how well your system runs. And one of the many services that the Foreman team offers is their annual maintenance program. They come out twice a year, they clean your system, check your refrigerant, change filters, and they just make sure that your system is running the way that it should. I recommend their annual maintenance program, from farm stuff to the toddler, work, the husband leaving for military stuff off and on throughout the year, and just everything else. It's just nice to have someone else take care of all of that. If you want to learn more about their program, or it's just time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Celebrating 100 years, Route 66. Next Thursday, April 30th, Great Southern Bank Arena, National Route 66 Centennial Kickoff Concert. You probably heard a promotional announcement earlier about that. Little Big Town, Gary LaVox of Rascal Flatts, Chris Jansen, Gretchen Wilson, hosted by John Goodman, and of course they mentioned $66 deal on purchase. What?
We do have that link up. If you're like, you know what? I don't even want to try to register for tickets. I just want to go ahead and get them. We do have that link up at ksgf.com.
All right.
Yes.
And you can text to win for your chance every day this week. A different keyword to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. The keyword today is concert. CONCERT. Text that to 417-447-KSGF, and that will be an entry for you to win tickets for that event next Thursday. And tomorrow will be a separate keyword for a separate chance to win. We were talking earlier locally, another Starbucks decided to unionize because it is such grueling, torturous work, much like the days of working in a coal mine for 18 to 20 hours, black lung, and all the other ailments, including potential collapse and death. It's pretty much similar to being apparently a barista at Starbucks. I don't know that says a lot about Starbucks as a company, but nonetheless. And they have voted 10-4. This is the location there on Sunshine near Campbell. And, Starbucks itself is doing a sort of corporate expansion, but it isn't going to be in Washington because of the increased taxes that have been put particularly on businesses, all in the name of helping out the little guy. Yet it's the little guy's jobs that go away, and so they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in Tennessee instead, which is one of the states with no income tax and lower taxes, smaller government, and this is just a repeat of what we have seen over and over again. But the New York Post had a story beyond the simple political refugee situation in this country in which Americans pick up, move their lives, move their families from Democrat-run states for a better quality of life in a Republican-run state, and they look at how they're doing now. And the Post piece reads, Californians who found themselves financially struggling in the state are leaving for much greener pastures, setting up their lives and their families in other states where they're now thriving. The residents fleeing California are poorer inhabitants, finding it hard to maintain their quality of life in the increasingly unaffordable state, but finding much improved circumstances after relocating, according to a new study. Now, notice these are the less wealthy people that they're talking about here. The reason this is noteworthy is because this is the group of people Democrats claim their policies help the most. This is the group of people that Democrats claim their party is better for. Yet it's those very people, when they have the chance, leave the states in which those policies are implemented and go to the states run by people that we're told hate poor people and don't care about them. This is where there can be a level of effectiveness in getting it into the heads of these people that are generally younger, or maybe not younger in terms of paying attention to what's going on in the world of politics and government. There's the level of what am I being told, but then there's a level of what are the actual results. And a lot of young people, they care about the downtrodden, they care about the poor, And they gravitate towards the Democrat Party because the media and the Democrat Party says, oh, we help the poor. We're the ones because we want to give them more stuff. We want to take away from those evil rich people and give it to the poor people. And on the surface, if you're a newborn to the world of policy, that just sounds great, doesn't it? In fact, it's just amazing. No one's ever tried this before. But when if a person really does truly care about lower income people who are financially struggling, then they should care about the results and they should care about where these people go. What do they do? And the inescapable fact is that people who are lower income are fleeing states that are run by Democrats, and they are going to states that are run by Republicans. That's undeniable. The Post story continues. Since the pandemic, the share of residents moving out of the state's higher income communities jumped also dramatically to 19%. Research from the University of California's California Policy Lab shows. The households leaving, or those households leaving, aren't broke, but they're struggling to make ends meet compared to their wealthier neighbors. Quote, the affordability gap has really widened over the last decade, Evan White, executive director of the lab, told the San Francisco Chronicle. That's making it really difficult for people even making good money to get by. Again, another important point here. Democrats claim that their policies are policies that make things more fair by eliminating or diminishing the income gap. But like everything else, it's the opposite that occurs, everything else when it comes to Democrat policies and generally government. Rich get richer, poor get poorer. Matt Ingalls, 41, was not poor by any means when he left Los Angeles for Dripping Springs, Texas, with his wife and 2 children in 2021 after 8 years on the West Coast. But with the high cost, he said it was easy to feel that he and others were falling behind. Quote, I do notice in California there is that wealth gap. I mean, there are just so many ultra-rich people living in LA and San Francisco, and you have daily exposure to those people. That's the rich getting richer. So maybe the perception, even if you're doing well financially, is that you don't have as much because there's so many people you know living in abundance. And by the way, I want to note, I have no problem. In fact, it's a good sign when rich get richer. You are always going to have rich people get richer. It's just a question of, is that something that is accessible to everyone, or is it something that becomes so limited that eventually, rarely is it a place that's obtainable, while at the same time, middle class becomes something that is on the brink of extinction as well. Florida, for example, rich people get richer. But guess what? Middle income people thrive, and people who are lower income move up into middle income because that is an easy transition. As opposed to a place like California where rich people continue to get rich as well, but the middle class is hemorrhaging, and the poor people are getting poorer instead of transitioning into middle class, which is a stepping stone to the upper class. He said the cost of living in Texas is significantly less than in California, with everything from gas to groceries. His family saves nearly $60,000 to $80,000 a year alone on education because the quality of public schools in Texas are good, while in California he had to send his children to private school. Quote, you just get more, way more bang for your buck in Texas than you do in California. My quality of life here is significantly better, but that's more than just finances. People exiting the states tended to have worse credit scores, sometimes with their credit cards maxed out. They had more auto loans, significantly higher student loan debt, and were 10% less likely to own a home. But when those people finally leave California, their outcomes improve according to the numbers. Those who left were 11% more likely to own a home after leaving. In contrast, People moving to California were only 6% more likely to own a home within several years. During 2025, nearly 150,000 more people left the state than arrived, not including foreign migration. Ingalls said he could see why, based on his own work in real estate. Quote, "The affordability here is a huge piece of the housing market, and I see that with my clients that move here. I mean, I have numerous clients that I've helped move here from California, and they're astonished at what they can get for their money." All that points to the fact that California is increasingly becoming a state for only the well-off, researchers note. Again, rich get richer while poor get poorer. High rents and housing costs are major factors that have kept people down. A separate study, also recently released, found that the average California household has about 35% less disposable income than the national average. The reason? High taxes, high housing cost, and high energy cost, all the result of Democrat policies. Efforts by state Democrats to increase housing stock still haven't made a dent, and in fact, as everything, their policies make things worse. New housing units built in the last 5 years have not yet translated into meaningful relief for households struggling with high cost. According to a senior fellow at the Public Policy Institute of California, the exodus of people can have serious consequences, the California Policy Lab said. Quote, "If trends continue, the implications for California's tax base and national political clout could be severe. For example, after losing one congressional seat in 2021, California is on track to lose 3 to 4 seats in Congress after the 2030 census," which, footnote, side note, is one of the reasons Democrats desperately try to import as many illegals into the country possible, because currently they get counted in the census. So while states like California have hardworking taxpayers leaving the state, they can offset that in terms of the census by importing illegals, which then allows them to retain or potentially even gain electoral college votes.